What is up, guys? Today we're going to talk about a migrant that got killed whilst he was in custody in a prison in England. I think it was down Leicester way. And what I do know is it was a serco privately run prison. And I've spent years in one of these serco private prisons, and I can tell you the violence is off the chart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about it, my own experiences in this prison, and talk about a migrant getting killed. Now, all my source material I get from a guy called Sam Samworth. He's got a channel called The Real Porridge Podcast, and he's an ex-prison officer, so he's been there, he's done it, he's seen it. There's no ulterior motive, there's no he's not trying to look tough or cool. He just says it as it is, straight down the line. So if he says something, I usually tend to believe it, because there's a lot of channels out there that just talk flannel. And they're trying to look cool and tough all the time, and they just tell lies. But this guy's not one of them. He tells it as it is. And according to him, what's happened is there was a migrant, or an immigrant, whatever PC word is these days, and he was due out the day later, and he's been beat to death in his cell. And what has happened is he's got some boiled his kettle, got some red hot sugar water, and thrown it in another inmate's face. So the other inmate has got his boys together, gone in his cell, get him a good thrashing, and ended up killing him. Apparently on the way out, one of them kicked him in the head and snapped his neck, and apparently this kid was due out the next day. So now they're all up for a murder charge, and it could have been avoided. What should have happened is, if he's thrown red hot water in someone's face, he should have got sent down the block, give him 10 years and fuck him off, keep him banged up. Because I've seen what happens when people get that in their face. It's horrible. All their eyes swell up, burns all the skin. It's nasty. So, yeah, just put him down block and give him 10 years, 20 years. That's what I'd do. But what they've done is they've put him back on the wing where it happened. And somewhere along the line, I don't know if it was overcrowding, I don't know if it was staff shortage, but they've unlocked him. Which is just crazy. Obviously there's going to be a comeback, and they've got together, they've gone in his cell and they've murdered him, killed him. Well, I don't say murder, they've probably not gone in there to murder him, they're probably just going to give him a good thrashing, but he's ended up dying, so they're all up for murder. And like I say, I've been in a serco prison. It doesn't surprise me because the violence is crazy. And I'm just going to give you an example. My first time when I got locked up, first of all, they messed up my paperwork. Right? I got there, and what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go there, go to this local serco prison, go to court, get you sentenced, and they'll ship you out to a HMP prison. But they didn't do that with me. They messed my paperwork up. They had me down as judge's remand. So I spent nearly 2 years straight in there. And the first day when I went in, I saw 2 very violent assaults before I'd even got on the wing. And we was down reception. A kid called Smithy is supposed to have been disposing heroin needles around playgrounds or something. So somebody's jumped up, smashed him, he's knocked him out, he's on the floor, everyone's jumped all over him, and they've took him away. And everyone was shouting, "One off!" And you know what I mean? Bear in mind, this is my first time in prison. I've not been around violence. I'm not a tough guy. I used to go to the raves. So now I'm thrust into this violent environment, and there's people getting smashed in front of me, and I've not even got it onto the wing yet. And they took me up, and as we was going on the wing, the doors flew open, and they're carrying this black dude out who'd had his face burned with red hot water. And I always remember, like, as they were carrying him round, I was shocked. And the screw, it was just like nothing happened. He just waited till he's gone, and he's like, "Come on, son." I'm like, fucking hell. Some dude's just been burnt, you know what I mean? And that was the level of violence. It was just everyday thing. And I remember they took me onto the wing, and it was a YO wing, and they're all mental. They were banging on the door, screaming, shouting, "What are you fucking looking at?" And we got into my cell, and I admit it, I was scared. I'm thinking, fucking, I'm not going out there. They're crazy out there. So I sat in my cell all day, and I was totally bored, and I found a newspaper under the bed. I was like, fucking hallelujah. I must have read that paper 30 times, front to back. I still remember the headline. It was something about Robbie Coltrane. And eventually, I was so bored, I thought, I've got to go out there. So I've gone out, and I'm green as hell, first time in prison. And back then, if you were from Sheffield and they put you on a Donny wing, there was a good chance you could get your head smashed in and sent off, just because you were from a different place. And if you were from, Sheffield, if you were from Donny and you went on a Sheffield wing, vice versa. And I've come out, and they put me on a Sheffield wing, and I'm green as hell. I didn't know what's happening, and they're all coming up saying, "Oh, where you from? What you in for? All this," and they were saying, "Oh, how much were your coat? Where do you get your coat from?" And I'm giving it the big cheese. "Oh, 200 quid." And I didn't know they were like eyeing it up, to rob me. But I didn't get robbed. And I remember I went down to the survey. I didn't really have any trouble at all. I was pretty lucky. I was big back then anyway, I was a big dude. I'm like 6'4", so that probably helped. But the only trouble I really had was when I went down to the surgery, and they give you like a plate and a bowl, and I went down and they stitched me up, give me like 3 chips, and but I'm green as hell. I didn't know what were happening, and I give them a bowl, and they're supposed to put like a sponge and custard in it, but they didn't. They put like a spoonful of carrots in it, like to stitch me up. Now I know now that if they try and do that, you have to flick that switch and say, "What you fucking doing?" You have to put it on them and stand your ground. But I didn't know that back then, so I've let them get away with it, and I went back to my cell, and I ended up getting a stereo sent in, and they sent me some destruction tapes in. And my saving grace was I was sat in my cell, and a dude off the surgery was walking past. He looked in, he says, "Oh, you go to destruction, dear?" And I was like, yeah, and we got talking, and he knew some of my mates, knew my mate who was a DJ, and we ended up swapping tapes, and he kind of like took me under his wing type thing. Every time I came down for dinner after that, he would say, "Oh, make sure you sort him out, give him some of that Doncaster pie," he used to say. So I was all right after that, and I ended up getting shipped out. But over the years, that was the first time in a serco run prison. And over the years, I've seen so much violence. Like 99% of the violence I saw in prison was in that serco prison. So it doesn't surprise me that a migrant's been killed. I mean, back then it was, I'm not going to say every day, but I say every like 2 or 3 days there would be a violent incident. Even things like sexual assaults, which you hardly ever see in prison. But I remember, I never saw any rapes. I heard about one guy who got raped, and it was in Moorlands, a kid called Miller, and they sent him to Doncaster. And you know what I mean? He got, I think the guy put him in with a lifer, and the guy like plied him with Valium and stuff. And when he was passed out on the bed, he pulled his pants down and took his cheeks, raped him. So they sent him to Donny, and imagine going through that, and then on top of that, you've got everyone on the wing taking a piss. Every time we walk past, they'd go, as if it were bed spring noises. And that's what happened. You get desensitized to these things, like sexual assault. And when I say sexual assault, I don't mean like having sex with other inmates. I'm talking about, say somebody comes in, and I've seen this. I weren't actually in the cell, but I was on the wing. I know who did it. I'm not going to name him because he's a big name in Donny. But some kids come on the wing, and he had drugs. So they've gone in, like put it on him, and he's saying, "Oh, I ain't got any. But they knew he had. So what they did then, they went after his pad mate, strong-armed him, and said, "Oh, we know he's got gear, where is it?" Started squeezing. And he's like, "Oh, he's got it up his arse." So that was it. Then they waited till he was in his cell on his own. They've got some surgical gloves, what they use on the servery to serve the food, rubber gloves, and they've gone in the cell, grabbed him in the headlock, bent him over, pulled his pants down and gone up his arse and got the drugs out. And I remembered he got quite a big pack as well. He had quite a bit, and that was prison. You get desensitized to it. Like if it happened, if I saw it on the street, I'd be like, "Fucking hell, phone police. I said, someone's getting fucking sexually assaulted here." But in prison, it's Dodgy Wednesday, it's just another day. I remember when I went past a cupboard. Anyone who's been to Doncaster will tell you they've got cupboards with the mop buckets in. Apparently they keep them locked now, but back then they didn't. And I remember walking past and I heard screams like, "Eh!" And I opened the door and there's 2 Donny lads got this kid from Hull on the floor with his pants down, sticking a broom up his ass, just terrorising him. And I just laughed and was like, hey, you little muppet, and walked off, because that's what prison does, it desensitises you. But that was the level of violence in these serco prisons. I don't know why, because like the food in these private serco prisons was good, great food. The cells were nice, clean, there was plenty of paint, there was plenty of cleaning materials, education was good, there was jobs on the wing, but there was huge violence. I don't know why, but that's just the way it was. But anyway, that's my experience in these serco prisons, so it really doesn't surprise me that a migrant has been killed in one, especially where England is now. I mean, everybody knows it's out of control with this mass immigration. It's that bad that, forget getting into doctors and dentists, you can't even get into prison now. I think it was on the news last night, there was something like 80 spaces left over the whole of England in prison spaces. So what do? Let out all the dangerous rapists so they can put in Jeff, who shouted at a police dog. It's mental. Two-tier police, I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, that's what it's like in these serco prisons. Violent, crazy, mental. So it doesn't surprise me that a migrant has been killed, especially when it was the day before he was supposed to get out. So anyway, that's the video for today. If you like this video, press the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Bonjour.